and capped off on the top with an Ellis Norn, with some planeswalkers and a couple pieces of equipment.
So definitely we'll be seeing, you know, a lot of creature on creature battle this game. For Craig Wesco, I think the anthems then become incredibly important. The creatures will all be the same size. The more anthems he can stick, the better. The more he starts to will be able to go over the top of Lucero's deck.
Yeah, the big thing is, you know, since most of it's going to be a lot of creature combat, so the Crusades are a big deal. Pretty awesome that Zachary Lucero potentially has a huge trump in his one main deck, Ellis Norn.
He also has 2 Gideon Jura. Not that strong against token decks, though.
Yeah, although, again, if it's any sort of creature race, I mean, Gideon has a lot of...
Gideon can be a double fog effect with a false, you know, can just make him attack. If he can eat 2 attacks, provided there's not an intangible virtue on the battlefield, that should be really good. So both players, though, I think the bigger thing which I noticed, both players sporting a full set of Hero of Blade Hold. From Wesco's side, he has 4 removal spells for Hero. Lucero has 3 at that. So you'll see if Hero lands, it'll stick.
Yeah, Hero in the creature matchups is just insane, and neither player has a ton of removal for an opposing hero, so that's potentially a big trump.
Right. What I do like about Lucero gets, with his Birds of Paradise and Avon's Pilgrim, gets to play the hero first.
Yep.
So
yeah, ramping into a fast hero is a very good game plan against Wesco's deck. So he starts off with a bird and a Doom Traveler.
Yeah, Lucero's deck in general, the size of his creatures a little bit smaller. No turn 3 play. I almost feel like Lucero then has kept something with a hero or a very good next play.
Yeah, perhaps a Garrick, which he also has. Garrick Relentless, which he has 3 copies of in his deck.
Yeah, not a very strong play currently on the board. The Garrick would be, but
making a wolf isn't horrible here.
No, making a wolf probably the play.
Yeah.
And he agrees, so we get a wolf down. Yeah, at the very least, Garrick makes 2 wolves and gains some life, which is pretty good for 4 mana. Not a hero, but not bad.
Yep. So yeah, Hero of Bladehold was a card, I know that was a lot more popular back when Slag Storms were all the rage.
Right.
He's sort of fallen off the radar because against Blue-White Delver, he's, you know, 4 mana and doesn't impact the board, so you're playing into leaks and snags. So pretty cool to see that card back on the radar, because the raw power of it is very, very high. Just hasn't always been the best spot for it.
Craig with no turn 3 play, that's misleading. Craig with a Midnight Haunting as his turn 3 play. The Wolf trades off with the Doom Traveler, and there's Gavoni Township, so Lucero's own version, basically, of an Honor of the Pier.
And Lucero's hand looks very land heavy. I see a forest and another Gavoni Township, so he might be a little light on action here.
Right, he's going to get some tokens.
Oh no, that's not a township. That's actually a hero in his hand, which I assume will
should be excellent here. All right, so now the pressure will be on Craig really to answer the hero here. If he has an O-ring, actually it looks like Craig has 2 heroes of his own in his hand.
Yep.
Attention Magic players, if you sign up for a $10 booster
so
draft number
3 tokens
1,
probably will take down the Garrick, but you know he's got to be worried. Hero, especially with the Gavoni Township, really only needs 2 swings to be lethal.
Yeah, it gets lethal fast. Fortunately for Wesco, I believe he just ripped an Oblivion Ring, which should be able to hit.
Very relevant. So 4 for the Garrick, 2 for Lucero's life total. Yeah, and I mean, you look, he doesn't actually have the 4th land.
An Oblivion Ring for the hero.
Very strong. So now, as soon as
although
Craig
Lucero, I believe,
hand,
just drew his own Oblivion Ring.
Ooh. At this point, though, it's possible that Lucero would be able to, that Wesco would be able to race if he opens ring Oblivion ringing back the Oblivion Ring.
Yeah, I mean Wesco's deck is capable of applying lethal pressure very quickly between all the little tokens and the various Crusade effects. So
right, if he draws a land here, Wesco could play his own hero, and largely ignore Lucero's hero, and probably I think Lucero. So he's going to go actually for an O-ring, not on the O-ring, but on the Anthem effect.
And I think a reason to run this play from Lucero's perspective is that with Gavoni Township, he can start building up his bird and potentially holding back Wesco's tokens.
Now, the bad news here is that Wesco, having drawn its 4th land, now will have heroes on the next 2 turns. The Oblivion Ring, with Lucero's out of Oblivion Rings, that could be very impactful.
So there's the land and a hero for Wesco. A Garrick the Relentless off the top for Lucero, not
really able to deal with hero, unfortunately. Well, he can. I mean, he can bluff. He can attack with the wolf and try to 2-for-1 himself, getting the hero. Once again, the bad news that Wesco's follow-up play will be another hero.
Yeah. Also, I think Wesco is just not very inclined to block here because he's so far ahead on the damage race.
Right.
Anthony Avalar.
Would you go as far to say that hero is probably the most important card in this matchup?
I mean, yeah, it's back when white humans or white blue humans was all the rage in standard. In the mirror match, hero unchecked was just game. No one ever won against that. So obviously both of them are playing with different skeletons surrounding the card, but I would assume the same principle applies.
Yeah, it seems like both of them still have O-rings to answer heroes, and Lucero is going to make the play we talked about earlier. Wesco does block. I think if he doesn't have another hero in his hand, he doesn't make that block.
Yep.
But as is right now, Wesco still with a full grip of cards. And even if his next hero takes a kill spell, I think he's probably okay with that. He has another Midnight Haunting. He has... I can't see the other card, but, a lot of ways to reload. And at this point, the Gavoni Township, I think just too slow for this matchup.
Right. Certainly from this board state, because Lucero's now with another hero is going to be looking at lethal in not too long.
2 swings, I believe. Or maybe, yeah.
Yeah, 2.
2.
Anytime you look at hero and it's like you can't quite tell, the answer's probably 2.
Yep. If Wesco has an anthem here, the answer is 1. So, Bird's back, block. He has just a township activation as his only play. And 2 soldiers come into play.
So we're on board looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 11,
13 damage. So Lucero probably making a block on the hero. I'll have to make a block on something.
Yeah.
Actually, you mean the other play you can double, now he's saying 2 block. 2 things or just 1 thing?
Well, the thing is, I think that he only wants to chump block if I were him, I would probably only want to chump block the hero. Because if he loses both of his birds, he loses Ellisnorn as a draw.
Right, I think the play I like there instead would be to put both birds in front of 1 spirit token. I suppose a bird trades with a spirit, it doesn't really matter. And the concession.
The rarely seen post-game 1 handshake from Lucero. Well, yeah, I think he just needs to block in such a way that he's not taking lethal, and he gets to keep 1 bird, because then he has his
Ellisnorn
his Ellisnorn as a draw, and then he's actually right back in the game.
Right. So things in each of their decks. Craig Wesco out of the sideboard. I don't think too much that he's really going to play with. He has 1 Elspeth Tyrell. That's possibly a good card here, as Lucero really doesn't have many answers to it. So it's it's like, in effect, it's like another hero.
Yep.
It's another one of those. It's a little large. It's a 5 mana spell. I'm not sure if 5 mana is fast enough anymore, but it's something with a really immediate impact. Outside of that, he has 1 more Oblivion Ring. I think you board that in because I don't think you can lose the hero race.
Yes.
But outside of that, I think that Craig Wesco's deck pretty much not changing too much. He does have 1 Plains in his sideboard, I noticed.
It's probably I would assume it's for when he's bringing in Elspeth.
All right, that makes sense. He has 14 Plains in the main, though.
What do you think about bringing... You think he's going to bring in Day of Judgment, or no?
That's a very interesting question whether he brings in Day of Judgment. The cool thing about the tokens deck is that he's able to really... He can sweep the board without much care for it.
Yeah.
I do think I like it for the most part, actually. Maybe going a more controlling route. Lucero has to commit much harder to the board to play things than Craig does, so Day of Judgment might actually be very good here.
And what about Angelic Destiny that Wesco also has?
So, Angelic Destiny or Day of Judgment are both pretty good. I don't think you can play both. They both are too expensive.
Yeah, they seem a poor pairing with one another.
Right. I definitely think things like Go for the Throat. It's an answer to hero. I think I like Day more as an answer to hero. The worry is if he's on the draw. If Lucero can play a hero Bladehold off a mana creature, Day of Judgment isn't quick enough. So on the draw, I might want to decide for Go for the Throats. On the play, I'm almost certainly going to go with the Day of Judgments. Destiny's really interesting. There's not much... Destiny's really good in these aggro matchups because really there's nothing that can answer them.
Yes. So, from Lucero's perspective, he has an Oblivion Ring, which I assume will be coming in. He has 2 copies of Ratchet Bomb, which seem quite good against tokens. A 4th copy of Sword and War and Peace.
That would almost certainly be coming in, I think.
He has 2 copies of Naturalize, which he might want against Wesco's Oblivion Rings and 8 Anthem effects, and
Attention
you know,
Magic players,
theoretically he could also have
$10
equipment in his deck as well.
Please
So
Right.
Naturalize is pretty
side of the
attractive.
stage. Your judge
He also
is
has one
blue
copy of
keyboard. He's looking
Corrosive
for you.
Gale,
Again,
which
that's
I'm sure is
$10
primarily
draft number
for
2. Please report to the side
Delver
of the
decks, but
stage.
could also have a function here.
Yeah, the thing I really like about cards like Lingering Souls is while Corrosive, you know, you look at Craig Wesco's deck, there's plenty of flyers in it, so Corrosive Gale seems like a great sideboard card. I actually don't really like it too much as a sideboard card against them because it never actually solves the problem you're looking to solve. Like,
Yeah.
So, in that sense, you know, all it does is buys time. It doesn't, against Delver, it actually is a Wrath, but it feels more like a Fog almost when you play it against tokens.
Yeah, I think Lucero's deck is a little bit better set up to take advantage of Corrosive Gale than most decks are, because with Hero of Bladehold and Thrun and those kind of threats, he can actually just kill him in 2 turns. So it's
Right.
not just an issue of buying time. If it's a pure damage race, then Gale can just allow Lucero to apply lethal.
Buying 2 turns is buying a lot of damage.
Yes. So Lucero has access to a lot of cards, you know, theoretically, like Ratchet Bomb and Corrosive Gale, which are not they're not awesome, they're not aces by any stretch, but certainly good against a token-oriented strategy when you're not playing any tokens yourself.
So the interesting thing about the Angelic Destiny plan, Craig has 4 Angelic Destinies in his sideboard. And what I'd kind of like your opinion on this is, when you're playing a tokens deck, Angelic Destiny seems like a really great card.
Yep.
But what do you side out for them? Almost everything in the deck seems very tight. You know, it's almost, for example, Craig's deck out has 4 kill spells, and other than that, every single card in it is a 4 of. It's Champion of Perish, Doom Traveler, Hero of Bladehold, Gather Townsfolk, Lingering Souls, Midnight Haunting, and 8 Anthems, all 4 of.
Yeah, it is tough. Like, I guess there's an argument for bailing on all of your enchantments if you're concerned about naturalized effects coming in against you, but the quality of his enchantments are so high that it's sort of hard to make that call.
Yeah, especially in this sort of creature-on-creature matchup, I think the Anthems have got to be just... They
Right.
seem so strong.
Well, you're either cutting Anthems or you're cutting threats. You know, those are really the only thing. That's all.
So
his
that's all
deck
the card
besides
is.
Oblivion Ring.
Lucero's Hearts, no mana creature, so if I'm Craig, I really like that. It means there's no turn 3 hero, which I still think is the scariest thing.
No turn 2 Strangleroot Geist either. Although, if I was Lucero, that might be one of the first cards to hit the bench. Oblivion Ring for the Intangible Virtue.
A little, so Lucero keeping hand very light on pressure, which is fine. Intangible Virtue, how relevant do you say is it in this matchup? Is it deserving of an O-ring?
I mean, it depends on what Lucero's curve is like. If he's going to be tapping out on 4, 5, and 6, and he
Sure.
might not have another window to, then it's very likely he just wants to stick it there.
2 tokens. Lucero with a Garruk Relentless in his hand. Once again, that card's a little underwhelming against tokens.
Right. This is also why it's nice to have Oblivion Ring here, because in theory he can gun down one of the tokens, and Wesco can't actually kill Garruk on the way back.
Right.
So I
Gonna
believe
play the
Lucero is debating between making a wolf here and shooting a token. He's going to shoot the token and turn Garruk over.
Garruk in this matchup, largely just a kill spell.
Yep.
In fact, I find that that's true with Garruk Relentless in a lot of matchups. Really is a sorcery, plays a lot like, you know, a kill spell gain 2 life.
Yes.
Craig, no Anthem here, so Garruk's going to get to live.
Yep. So yeah, Oblivion Ring and the Intangible Virtue ended up being very nice for him.
Right. I mean, still remains, and Craig, no play here. His play is Midnight Haunting once again. And Lucero going big, and
All
here
right.
comes the Dream Team. Garruk's going to be protected for a while.
Yep. And Wesco's hand's pretty light on action. It appears to be 3 lands and a Midnight Haunting on top of the Lingering Souls in the graveyard.
That's got to look great for Lucero then.
Yeah.
You know, Gideon really good with other planeswalkers.
Open players, when you finish your match, fill out your slip and turn it in up here at the stage, the box marked.
So Garruk get 2.
Standard open
Lucero's
results.
drawn a
You do not
birds,
need to hand
which I
your
really
slip
think,
to a
like at this
judge.
point,
Thank you.
the Garruk with the Veil Cursed, really a nice card. Its ability to turn the birds into, well, I would say either a hero or maybe go for the Singleton Elishnorn, depending on what his hand looks like.
Yep.
What I really like is if he casts the birds next turn, he can, on the previous turn, float a mana, search up the Elishnorn, cast it, and that should close the game out.
Yeah. Especially with Wesco's hand just being so light on action. I believe his hand's actually all lands at this point.
Yeah, I think the third card, I believe, is a go for the throat.
Oh, he might have a go.
Yeah, but no, it's a swamp. No, you're right. It's all lands.
Again, standard winner box number 1, please report to the side of it stage.
Two Birds of Paradise, another land for Lucero. One bird, two birds. Lucero's last card, an Oblivion Ring. I really like where he's sitting.
Yep. Garrick plus
I almost, actually, now that I have two birds, I think I fetch up the Elishnorn immediately, just on the off chance that Craig Wesco draws an Oblivion Ring here.
Yep.
I don't want to lose my chance. I don't want anything standing in the way of me making Elishnorn next turn. And there she is.
I assume we're going to be plus 2ing our Gideon here.
Plus 2 our Gideon. Craig with his deck list, I don't see any way around this for him. You know, Elishnorn's going to come down next turn. It's going to be backbreaking. So yeah, that one of Trump, really powerful here.
Yep. And Lucero looks to be just in great shape here. Even if Wesco rips like go for the throat of Oblivion Ring, the Elishnorn is going to wrath his board, and he's still going to have Garrick. He has Garrick plus Gideon left over.
5 damage, and Gideon's
Still trucking.
Yeah, Gideon's still alive. Great for Lucero.
Wesco appears to have just drawn a Doom Traveler, which is not
which was soon to not be a card. Yeah, Elishnorn comes down. Gideon can swing for 8. It's a pretty safe swing at that point,
yep.
too. He might not make the swing just because there's no, you know, say Craig's hand is a fistful of Doom Blades, or go for the throats. You know, it's actually probably, while it's 95% to swing with the Gideon, it might be 100% just to keep plus 2ing him.
Yep.
Lucero contemplating his plays. All of them are amazing.
There are no bad options.
So far out of Wesco, we haven't seen any sideboard cards, so his plan's still largely unknown. We talked about siding in Day of Judgment, about siding in Angelic Destiny. Having watched this game play out, I'm not sure I like the Day of Judgment plan out of the board.
Certainly losing to Garrick plus Gideon is an argument for removing your Day of Judgments if you've brought them in.
Yeah, and he pluses the Gideon, and I do think I like that play.
Yep.
It's a catch-all.
Yeah, you're not gonna lose this game until Wesco just drew his singleton Elspeth.
Turn earlier would have been very good.
Yeah.
At this, you know,
I would be surprised if he even bothered to cast it because I don't even think he wants to show that it's in his deck.
Right, a turn earlier actually would have given him an out to Elishnorn.
Yeah, would have been quite
fantastic.
good. Yes,
but a little late. And Elishnorn making all the creatures very, very large. That almost lethal 4, 6, 8, 10 with a swing with Gideon. Is 17. Gideon becomes a 6/6 or a 5/5.
Players in
He's a
$10
6/6.
draft
That actually is
number 3,
18 if he attacks with the Gideon
Players
here.
in $10 draft 3 to the main event stage, please.
if I was Lucero, I'd probably get in there. I mean, it's the likelihood that Wesco's hand is just all blanks since he didn't do anything last turn and the turn previous.
And there we go.
Yep.
Okay. So moving on to game 3.
So, yeah, and all of that was pretty much engineered by Lucero Oblivion ringing that intangible virtue on the whole game. The whole curve of the game was so much better for him having that set up as opposed to
the ability of Craig not to be able to swing back and kill that Garruk. And then the Garruk ended up getting the Elishnorn.
And then the Gideon was locked up his board for multiple turns. So
right, then intangible virtue turning out to be O-ring the anthems. Okay, yeah. I'm sold on it.
That and also if I was playing from Lucero's side, it's like you need to have Oblivion rings because he has a couple powerful cards that you can Oblivion ring. But in the absence of those cards, Oblivion Ring's actually pretty mopey against Wesco. Like, he's got a bunch of token generation, 1-mana creatures. I mean,
right.
So anytime you have a good spot to cash it in for one of Wesco's powerful cards, I think you probably just pick that spot.
When you think about the good things to hit, obviously I think Hero is the best thing to hit. So you want to be scared of Hero. You need to be aware that he could just hero you. But at the same time, if he's casting a turn 2 Virtue and had no 1-drop, Wesco's a strong player. Why did he keep the hand?
Yeah.
I would assume there's at least a Midnight Haunting or possibly a Lingering Souls in it.
Right.
So, I mean, it's true that's really scary to face on a hero, but, for a Lingering Souls with a Virtue, it's almost as scary as a hero, so probably just the Virtue's got to go.
Right, and if Lucero's hand is Garrick into Gideon, he actually has reasonable game even if Wesco has turn 4 hero and it's left unchecked. Like, he can clog up the ground a little bit. You can trade with hero on that attack.
Both players shuffling up for game 3.
But I think the biggest issue is just mana. Well, like we said, since he already has his turn 4 and his turn 5 determined,
absolutely,
you can't just say go on turn 3 against a play that has the potential to be very threatening with like any sort of reasonable hand out of Wesco.
Right. So on the play, Wesco's strategy, it doesn't look like, I don't think we see him re-sideboarding, so it probably stays approximately the same.
So do you think Wesco maybe cuts Gather the Townsfolk because it's so hard to fight on the ground against like a green-white creature deck?
Possibly.
Like the flying tokens are obviously quite good because Lucero isn't very good at blocking flyers.
That might be where I'd want the Angelic Destiny instead of Gather the Townsfolk.
Yeah.
Something that really just, when you think about the number of answers, I mean, Lucero does have Oblivion Ring. But that's really it. Angelic Destiny is more, it's putting in more I win cards into your deck.
It's sort of a weird thing, like, from Wesco's side of things, and I know this, like, having played mono red decks, it's like all your cards are roughly the same. So when your sideboard is off, when you're sideboarding, it's very rare that you have a card that's like clearly non-functional. You're usually looking at percentages, like some threat cards marginally worse against your opponent than something else.
Right.
Which makes sort of commentating on where he's going to sideboard, like trying to guess, pretty rough because all the cards look very similar to one another. But I guess Gather the Townsfolk would be where I would go just because...
What I think I find a lot of the time then, you'll see that the same cards coming out. When you have a deck with a lot of redundancy, there's usually one card that is your worst card, for example. When I play a Storm deck, for example, all right, the worst ritual is Pyretic Ritual. When you side out, that's usually the one that comes out. I imagine Burn has a lot of similar qualities, which, some Burn spells are, your Rift Bolts are worse than your Lightning Bolts, for example. You may not side out any of them ever.
A lot of it, I mean, yeah, it's there's things like if your opponent has Stifles, you want to cut your Rift Bolts instead of your other Burn spells. If your opponent has Chalice of the Void, you want to cut your ones. There's sort of marginal, again, but these are all very marginal things.
Both players appear to be...
Wesco appears to be taking a mulligan.
Going to 6. Not that dangerous in his style of deck. His deck is so explosive that, the interaction really, like I said, of a Midnight Haunting with an Anthem, enough to carry the game by itself. He should function just fine on 6 cards, provided they're 6 good ones.
Well, I think it's possible this is Wesco's second mulligan, actually, because he was shuffling there before with Lucero sitting still. So
yeah, we'll confirm that in a second here.
Alright. Yeah, Wesco's on 5 cards. He has a hand of... Wesco has a hand of Swamp, and white cards. And he's just drawing another Swamp.
Well, I mean, the hand has potential to get there, so I think
Wesco's deck only has 4 Swamps total. He has 3 of them currently in his hand.
And, oh my, Sword of War and Peace.
This could be...
Off birds, very scary. Craig with no plays.
Once again, players
just another Swamp.
Draft 4 to the public event stage, please. Thank you.
Which unfortunately means they'll have quite a full grip for Sword of War and Peace.
And Lucero is just drawing Hero of Bladehold.
So Sword will probably be good enough. Wesco with a Plains can get back in this, but he'll need it almost immediately. Once he has 1 O-ring, so he'll have to O-ring the Sword, which unfortunately means the hero will not get O-ringed.
Is there anything more frustrating in Standard than being land screwed against a red-white sword? It has to be the absolute worst feeling.
In terms of you asking cards in hand, you're like, a lot.
Yeah, I have a ton of cards because I can't cast anything.
There we go.
Just drawn the
They're on the
planes.
planes. He has to O-ring the sword.
Yeah, he just has to get that sword off the table.
With his rest of his hand, 2 intangible virtues and a lingering souls. Had the planes shown up on curve, this hand I think could have gotten there. As it is, still a large
Yeah, and
underdog.
Lucero's got Hero of Bladehold still waiting in the wings here. He's just, I believe, just drawn a township. He's going to naturalize the Oblivion Ring, so he did bring in his naturalizes.
And with enough mana to re-equip it. Should just be lethal on its own. Craig doesn't really have any, I mean, his deck, all his creatures are white. He has actually no way to interact with the sword outside of O-ring. He has
going the target in response. Like, he has very, very few answers. And there's the township. And Lucero with still a ton of action left in reserve. All right, there's a Lingering Souls.
So once again, creatures are
does
white.
exactly nothing in this spot.
Wesco with 3 cards in hand, dropping down to 3. And the sword should 2 attacks should be good. And very few draws for him to get out from under this. Even with a 7-card hand, I would say Craig Wesco would be very hard pressed to beat this.
This draw was pretty much perfect from Lucero.
Turn 2 sword with the naturalized backup. Really puts the onus on Craig to have 2 O-rings. Very hard.
And that's just to keep his head above water. That's not even,
That's
not even like he's necessarily winning.
Then Lucero has other cards in his deck.
And a Ratchet Bomb for the full rubbins.
Just in case.
Just in case.
And that game's
a concession.
Craig, So Craig Wesco falls to
Zachary Lucero wins 2 games to 1. His second game, I mean, that game was obviously just red-white sword, but the second game really demonstrated some cool angles that his deck has access to. Just curving into Garrick plus Gideon.